I'm going to go ahead and jump into my demo account for our first live sneak preview into Sikich's Suite Success for Life Sciences, focused on program and project management. So for today's demonstration, I'm going to start off by taking a look at our workflow for our purchase order to cash process. So to kick things off, I'm going to log in, and you can see I'm in my NetSuite data set as a limited user. So NetSuite is a role-based system that gives the end user access to certain permissions. And we've gone ahead, and what we've done with our limited user is simplified the dashboard view for the users. And this user is really someone that's only accessing the system as part of the purchasing process. So we've made it very specific to purchasing and easy and intuitive to navigate the system. Right from here, I can see all my purchase orders that have been entered, and I have visibility into the specific status. I can see one of these is actually in a pending approval status. And with one click, I can go ahead and drill down into the underlying details and see exactly who that approver is. So I know that William's my next approver. Now, if for some reason this was to be tied up, I can proactively reach out to William and inquire as to why that purchase order hasn't been approved yet. It allows the end user to be proactive versus reactive, and you have a dashboard that's intuitive and easy to navigate to quickly access information all at your fingertips. So for today's use case, we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at actually creating a purchase order. I can go ahead and navigate to my shortcuts and create a new purchase order. Intuitive and easy to use the system. And I'm going to go ahead and enter a specific vendor that we have. And for purposes of this demo, I'm just going to use our autofill feature to pre-populate this purchase order for me to save some time. So as you can see here, in my header level, I've gone ahead and entered in some key information. I'm going to be the requester of the specific purchase order. I've gone ahead and entered a memo for new lab supplies. You don't have to do that, but if you wish to, you can go ahead and enter additional details, as well as included an attachment. So within a transaction or record in NetSuite, you have the ability to upload attachments. Maybe there's additional details for this specific purchase order that you need. Point and click functionality to go ahead, as well as drag and drop functionality to pull in those files. Classification is just defining those specific dimensions, and that comes into play when we look at reporting features. From an item perspective, we kept this high level, and this is what we're seeing in the life science space. We're using a generic item within our master price list that's stored within NetSuite to give us the flexibility to use this description field to get more granular in detail for exactly what we're procuring. You have the flexibility to define exactly how you want to set it up. This is just a sample for today's demonstration. And again, we've gone ahead and used some additional segments at the end here to tag a specific department, project, and program to the specific purchase order. I'm going to go ahead and save down this purchase order. And then behind the scenes, we've gone and we've configured a workflow, which will kick off as soon as I click the Submit for Approval. So for this use case, we can see that my next approver is Mark Collins. He also has a limited user role, and he's able to go ahead and approve this specific purchase order. So I'm going to go ahead and toggle into Mark Collins' role. And what you'll see here is you have the ability to go ahead and personalize each dashboard. So we have more of a red color stream as in this limited user role. From here, I can go ahead and take a look at my purchase orders that I need to approve, and everything is done in real time. So I have a reminder on my dashboard for a purchase order to approve, as well as in my Outlook, I'm going to receive an email notification. I have some details for the specific purchase order, and I can quickly go in, view this record, and it will pull me up to underlying details if I need additional information from what was included in that email alert. Right from here, we can go ahead, we'll drill down, and for purposes of this demonstration, we'll go ahead and approve this transaction to continue the workflow. So now that we've gone ahead and we've created a purchase order, we've approved that, we're going to go ahead and transition into our AP role to take a look at now receiving that specific vendor bill or vendor invoice in the system. Before we go ahead and we get into too much detail, there are a few reports that I want to quickly highlight. One of these reports is our overall spend by vendor. So based on your role and your permission, you're going to have access to certain reports. So at any point in time, you can quickly take a pulse on your accounts payable information or specific vendor information. So I'm going to have visibility into all my spend by vendor. I can then slice and dice this information by different filters. And as with any report in NetSuite, I'm able to go ahead and export these into a variety of formats, whether that's Excel, PDF, even go ahead and email that out or print this information. As my AP analyst, I'm going to be looking for incoming purchase orders and vendor invoices. So I'm going to go ahead to my reminders for our orders to receive. And what this system is saying is that, okay, we're awaiting the specific purchase orders and vendor bills that we need to receive. It just so happens that I've gone ahead and in my email inbox, I received that specific vendor invoice for this related purchase order. I can then go ahead and click receive, and all the information from the purchase order is pre-populated to generate a vendor bill. So what the system is doing is we don't have to manually take time to key in a new vendor bill or vendor invoice. We're pre-populating everything from our purchase order, and we're simply validating as we scroll down here. Yes, we have a vendor invoice that matches for lab supplies for $25,000. We can go ahead and modify the specific bill if the amount did not reconcile and have a two-way match for internal controls to flag if there's a discrepancy. We'll go ahead and for purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to review the vendor bill, everything aligns, and if for some reason I need to go ahead and attach the actual documentation, I can go ahead and either drag and drop or directly upload that from my desktop here. So we've gone ahead, we saved that down, and just like that, after I select a folder, I've been able to go ahead and upload, I've gone ahead and uploaded that document to that specific folder. And I have a record and everything is stored in a centralized location. Now I can go ahead, and the system does have mandatory fields in place, and those must be entered before we can transition further along in the transaction. I'll go ahead and enter a specific vendor invoice number and save down the specific bill. And again, you can define which fields are mandatory in your specific instance. And we've gone ahead and we've set up an additional approval workflow for this specific vendor bill. And I'm going to go ahead and submit this for approval. And there's a few things to highlight here. Now that I have submitted this bill for approval, it's gone ahead and kicked off our AP workflow. What we have found in the life science space is that typically they want to go ahead and route this vendor bill back to approval for the initial requester who submitted the PO. So as you can see, the next approver has been routed back to Meg Shea, who is the initial requester that submitted this. I happen to be proxying across multiple roles in this demo environment, so I actually have the capabilities to go ahead and approve it. You would set up your NetSuite instance to have a segregation of duties to prevent those internal controls from allowing the user to approve their own bills, but this is just simply for demo purposes to continue the process flow here in my AP role. I'm going to go ahead and approve this bill. And just like that, we've gone through the process of being able to create a purchase order, generate a vendor bill or invoice in the system with point-and-click functionality efficiently and quickly. There's one other report that I want to highlight. That would be our AP aging report. So out of the box, you're going to have these reports that are going to give you real-time visibility into all of your vendors. You can see their AP aging from days that are current and then how many days aging these are, broken out by vendor, giving you real-time visibility into actually what is owed. Going back to my home dashboard, as we could see on our actual vendor bill, I do have the option to individually make payment, but I can also manage this in process in bulk. So if I'm our back-end AP accounts payable individual, I can go ahead and drill down into my reminders and take a look at our bills to pay and manage this process in bulk. So here you can see we're working with our cash checking account that we've gone ahead and entered, and we have the specific bills that we've gone ahead and specified. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out to the end of December to give us a little bit more data to include some of those payment dates that might be for terms of net 30. As we can scroll down here, we're going to be able to find our ACOM bill that we just entered for that $25,000. We can go ahead and slice and dice this in a variety of ways, whether we want to filter this by specific any discount dates that might be available or due date. We have the flexibility to tailor this to meet our specific needs and manage how we want to make payment. In terms of classification, since this was a balance sheet transaction that we just entered, I'm going to go ahead and enter the appropriate departments, programs, and locations for this individual payment to tag those to that specific payment. We'll go ahead and save this information down, and what the system will do is it's going to go ahead and queue up a batch system for checks to be printed when we go ahead and run that process. Goes through everything in terms of our procurement. We've gone through being able to enter a purchase order in the system all the way through issuing payment out to the vendor. In addition, we've been able to see how we're able to use workflows to ensure the proper internal controls are in effect at each step throughout the procurement process. This last step, we'll go ahead and queue up the system to generate a check number once we've gone ahead and generated that batch system of our check printing process. I'm going to pause here and take a minute to go ahead and transition into another use case. And what we hear from many of our existing clients is that they need to manage their procurement process in an even more detailed fashion. What we typically see is our clients will sign off on, say, $1 million contract with a vendor, and they need to be able to track how much of that overall budget they're using each month. And Chris spoke to this, and Billy as well, in our PowerPoint. So let's take a look at what this looks like in action. I'm going to go into my administrator role, who has access and permissions to everything. And for this use case, we're going to take a look at a seated example of Project B here. So you have the flexibility to manage all of your projects in a centralized location and all the information in a single record. So a few key things to point out here. At the header level, we have some primary information. We have a variety of fields, and this allows you to enter information related to that specific project, and you can tailor these specific fields to meet your needs. So if there's some attribute of the project you need to capture, you can customize this form to go ahead and capture that. We also have classification information. So this is allowing us to track accounting information for what accrual, prepayment, and expense account this project will hit, as well as additional segments to this project, so we can see what department and program this project's associated to. And on these subtabs, I want to focus on our contract tab. So this allows us to build out a budget to manage a total spend that we signed off on for the project. So for January 2018, we're planning to spend around $23,000 of the total amount. So we can come in here when we go ahead and sign that specific contract and define exactly what our spend will be on a monthly basis. Then what NetSuite will do as our invoices automatically come into the system, we will calculate the total spend for that month for the specific project based on those invoices that have been entered. And from an accounting perspective, the difference between the planned amount and the amount actually spent against the project will put this project either into a prepaid or an accrual position. NetSuite will automatically book the appropriate accrual or prepayment journal entry depending on this outcome. We'll go ahead and pop open this journal entry that has been booked for us. So the system automatically creates the journal entry to record the appropriate accounting debits and credits for us. And we can see that we can even have additional approval workflows on these journal entries to put them in approval status and then actually go ahead and approve and reject this. So this eliminates a lot of the manual effort that we hear of time-consuming hours massaging Excel spreadsheets and trying to manage this. Within NetSuite, you have a centralized project record and you to manage your overall contract spend and budget. And then you have, from an accounting perspective, the system automatically managing your prepaid and accrual and creating that journal entry for you, saving you an enormous amount of time to account for those appropriately. And lastly, as Billy mentioned, another use case that the screen gives you is you have the flexibility to meet with that project manager each month to validate, does this plan still hold true? Maybe there is an adjustment to this overall spend with this specific for the specific project. You have the flexibility to modify this plan and make those necessary changes at any point in time throughout the life cycle of that project. So in short, just to summarize here, NetSuite allows you to manage your procurement process as well as track project strength, and it automatically books the appropriate accounting entries, whether that be a prepaid or accrual.